Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Since picking up this Harbor Freight Predator 11,500 watt inverter generator, I've gotten a lot of questions from friends and families and even viewers about what can this realistically power, and is this an actual solution for a whole house generator at a fraction of the cost? And I want to answer those questions today, as well as take this generator and hook it up to my home's transfer switch and show you that it can actually power the entire house, and then make a suggestion that would be even better than a transfer switch for powering your house. So let's just pull the camera in close and again, do a quick overview of the unit. Then we're going to get it out onto the patio and hooked up. And I'm going to go over the entire cost breakdown of the generator, what accessories you need to have this power your house. And we're going to do a cost comparison to, say, a Generac whole house unit, and why you might want to choose something like this over a larger standby generator. So for those of you that are not familiar with this very new to the market generator, the Predator 11,500 watt Tri-Fuel, I just want to spend a moment to go over the specs and kind of the basic operation of the unit, so you can just get a decent understanding of how it works. So this generator is advertised as an 11,500 watt generator, and basically what that means is it can surge to 11,500 watts or handle a momentary surge up to that wattage. It doesn't mean that it's a continuous power draw, it just means it's a temporary surge. And being tri-fuel, it means you get different running wattages on different types of fuel. So I'm just going to post a picture of the box here on the screen so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But on gasoline, you can run at 9,000 watts continuously. On propane, you can run at 8,100 watts continuously. And on natural gas, you can run at 7,200 watts continuously. All three of those fuels still allow you to surge up to 11,500 watts. For example, if you were starting a large central air conditioning unit, or a large induction motor, or an air compressor, or a refrigerator, or some type of device that just causes a large surge upon startup. The next thing I want to go over is just the basic control panel here of the generator and what you're looking at and how different things operate. So from the control panel, we can see that we've got obviously the on-off button. We have a start-stop button, which is basically like you would have in a car. Now the on-off switch just turns the power onto the unit, which allows you to hit the start-stop button. And when you do hit this button, a lot of people make this mistake. You have to hit it 2 times to start it. Over here, this allows you to parallel another generator to this. So if you had 2 of these, you can increase the power significantly by pairing them together. Over here are your traditional Edison outlets. These are GFCI type outlets. Next over here, we have 2 30 amp twist locks. One is a 3-prong, one is a 4-prong. We have the circuit breakers. And then up here, we just have a usual USB-A and USB-C. Probably would never use that, but it is nice to know that you have it should it, become important to you. Next up, we have a 50 amp outlet. Now on almost all generators, portable generators, the 50 amp outlet is not a true 50 amp outlet, in the sense that you're not going to get 50 amps out of it unless you're pairing 2 units together. So you need to just take a look at that and calculate the load that you might need. It's very doubtful that you're going to need a true 50 amps, and for most folks that's going to work just fine and be more than enough. And in fact, a lot of folks are going to be fine using this 4-prong 30 amp outlet right there. Moving along, this selector knob is really interesting because a lot of generators don't have that because they just run on gasoline. This being a tri-fuel unit allows you to switch between liquid propane gas, gasoline, or natural gas, and then on the bottom we just have off or storage, which allows you to kind of burn the gasoline out that's in the line. Now, I would really recommend this generator over most other portable ones because of its tri-fuel nature. Being tri-fuel, you don't need to worry about fuel storage if you have natural gas service or if you have propane. If you're only going to run on gasoline, that's fine, but you need to realize you have to have enough gasoline stored on site or be able to readily access it in order to run this generator continuously. It does have a fairly large tank. I think this is about 6.5 gallons if I remember correctly. And you'll get about roughly 14 hours from that 6.5 gallons. So in my personal opinion, if you have natural gas service at your home, definitely you want to get a little natural gas line piped through the side of the house. You can pick up the hose here from Harbor Freight to plug into this, and then you can connect it to your natural gas service. And you can basically run indefinitely with this generator, stopping only to do oil changes if you had a prolonged power outage. Now I obviously have a propane tank out here for demonstration, but it is important to note that this unit does have a gasoline tank on top. It does have a fuel gauge right here, so these are all really good features as well that make this very different from a pad-mounted whole house generator. Now I do want to go into cost and the accessories that you're going to need to run this in order to power your house, and then we're going to actually start this up and connect it to the house, and I'm going to make a suggestion that will be very beneficial to you if you're going to use this as a whole house generator. So let's do this. Let's get this out onto the patio closer to the house. I'm going to show you what you need to hook it up. We're going to start it and do a whole bunch of demonstrations, and then we're going to do the entire cost breakdown, like I said, compared to a whole house pad mounted unit like a Generac, for example. Okay, so I've moved the generator out here to the patio, and I've brought a couple of items out that we're going to need to connect this to the house. And this is pretty much all you're going to need to connect this to your house. And for example, I've brought a propane tank out and the propane hose and regulator. If you're going to run on gasoline, you don't need that. You can just pour gasoline directly into the tank and you're good to go. If you're going to run on natural gas, again, you don't need this. You're just going to hook a natural gas hose up to here that you can buy at Harbor Freight, and then you're going to connect that to the natural gas port on the side of your house that you'll need a plumber to install. So you won't need those items, like I said, if you're on natural gas or gasoline. Over here, this is what's called a generator cord, and you're definitely going to need one of those. And you're going to need either a 50 amp or a 30 amp, depending on what you have installed on your house by an electrician, to get the power from the generator into the house. In my example, I'm using a 30 amp cable, and I picked this up. This cable is actually made by the Champion Generator Company because I happen to like their cables, but Harbor Freight sells them. You can get these cables anywhere you want. They are roughly, depending on where you buy it, the time of the year, a sale, they're roughly $50 to $100 depending on the length of the cable and what you want to do with it. Other than that, let's go hook this generator up, and then let me show you. I'm just going to move the camera to where we're going to plug it in, and hopefully you can see this here on the side of my house. This is what's called a generator inlet box. So this is a 30 amp. I actually installed this myself, but I would suggest you probably get an electrician. And that cable is just going to plug right into here, and then it's going to plug right into the generator, and that's all you need to do outside. There is a little piece inside, and we'll get to that. But for right now, let's get the propane tank hooked up. Let's get the cable hooked up. Let's get the generator turned on. Now let's hook this up together. But I do want to make a suggestion. For those of you that this is the first video you're watching on this generator, or you're just kind of learning about it, I did do a whole unboxing and setup, and I think that video would be very beneficial to a lot of folks that maybe are new to this, because this is quite a large unit when you're trying to get it out of your car and get it, set up, where you need it to be. And the video will actually give you a lot of tips on how this generator works. It's going to be a full unboxing, a step-by-step guide to everything you need to do to set it up, including filling it with oil and information that you may not glean from this. So I'm going to link to that in the description, and I really suggest you check it out because it will be, like I said, very beneficial. Okay, so if you're noticing, all I've done so far is I've just connected the regulator to the tank, and I've connected the hose to the generator. Next up, I'm going to take the generator cord here, and let me just show you this in front of the screen. So this is a 30 amp plug, and if you look at this carefully, and I don't know if it's going to show up well on the camera, it may not be focusing, but one prong kind of has a blade that goes inward. You need to take note of that orientation because you need to find the same spot on the receptacle in the generator to plug it into. So notice again that I'm doing all of this right now while the generator is off and not running. So we're going to plug that in. We're going to give it a slight turn to the right because it's called a twist lock, and as we turn it to the right, it's going to lock in place and you can't pull that cable out. All right, now that that is complete, we're going to take the other end of the cable, which is right here, and we're going to bring it over to our inlet box on the side of the house. And let me just set the camera up here, and I'm going to grab the cable because I want you to be able to see how we connect this. And it's going to be the same concept on here, and I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but there's one spot that it curves inward, and we want it to line up with the blades of the receptacle right here. So let's find that. Looks like it's right over here. So we're in, a little twist to the right, and we're locked. That is literally all you have to do to set this up to become a whole house generator. So if you think that there's a million steps involved, there are not. You need to take the generator out, connect it to a fuel source, or if it's gasoline, pour the gasoline in, connect the cable, then you just got to start it up. So let's start it up together. Okay, I've lowered the camera here, that way we can get a good view of how to kind of start this generator, but I want to take a moment now just to go over some of the pricing here of this unit and what you're going to need versus, say, a whole house generator. Now, a whole house generator, you're going to be looking at probably $8,000 to $10,000 to buy the generator. Then you need a licensed plumber to come and install it, or install the natural gas line or the propane line. You need a licensed electrician to come and install that to your house. You still need a transfer switch, which may or may not come with it. And then obviously you need an electrician to tie everything into the panel. So all said and done, oh, you also need a concrete pad or a composite pad to put it on, and you need someone to move it because it's not an item that you can pick up even with a few people. So when you're all said and done, you are probably looking at roughly $15,000 to $20,000 for the whole house Generac or Kohler, for example, whole house generator. Now with this Harbor Freight Predator 11,500 watt unit, out the door, I've got this on sale with a 15% coupon. Out the door with tax, this was about $2,000. I picked up a dolly that was $17, so that kind of threw the pricing off. But $2,000 for this. The cable, like I said, is going to be roughly $50 to $100, depending on what you get. And then you need either a transfer switch or an interlock kit. Now, I have a transfer switch, and we're going to take a look at that in just a minute. But I suggest you get an interlock kit. And the interlock kit with the install is going to run you roughly $1,500 by a licensed electrician. So you are really looking at quite a significant difference in cost. You're looking at $3,500 here with the Harbor Freight generator and the interlock kit and the cable and the natural gas hose versus $15,000 to $20,000 with the whole house Generac unit. All right, now that this is all hooked up, we've gone over kind of a cost breakdown. Let's start this thing up. So I'm going to turn this switch on, and now this is propane, so I'm going to turn the tank on, and it's probably going to take about 2 times to start because you do need to purge the air from this hose as it's pulling propane in. I have my selector switch turned to liquid propane gas. If you were on gasoline, you would move it up here. If you were on natural gas, you'd move it over here. Breakers are on. Everything is on. I'm going to press this button twice, and it's going to, try to turn over. I'll probably have to do it another 2 times. Oh, started on the first try. Even better than I thought. Generally speaking, it's going to take about 2 times to start it, like I said, to purge the propane. Now, I know you can't tell on camera, but again, if you watch the unboxing video that I did where I did a whole bunch of testing, and I'm going to link that video to this one, I did take a decibel meter and I tested the sound of the units. You can kind of determine how noisy this is, and it is exceptionally quiet. We were pulling about 62 decibels at 18 to 20 feet away, which is remarkable. Now, this generator has what's called eco mode or non-eco mode. Eco mode basically means that when you're running in eco mode, it's going to lower the engine RPM to match the load. So if you're just powering a couple of lights, a fan, it's going to lower the engine way down because you don't need all that power. But then if you have a large air conditioner starts up, it's going to sense that demand and it's going to take it and rev the engine up so it can produce more power. That results in significant fuel savings as opposed to a regular generator, which is just running at a constant high RPM to keep that 60 hertz and to keep everything going. This is also an inverter generator for those that are wondering. So that basically means that the generator is producing very clean power. It's a pure sine wave. And if you're powering sensitive electronics, which is basically anything new nowadays, like a mini split system, a computer, televisions, whatever it is, this is very good with sensitive electronics as opposed to a traditional generator, which has quite a dirty sine wave. If you were looking at it on a scope, you would see that sine wave is very distorted, and those distortions will cause the generator to go out of hertz, and your power could really screw up the sensitive electronic device. And some devices like new furnaces and HVAC units, they actually won't start and work properly if the power is really dirty. So it's important to know that this is safe power, and it's going to power what you need. Okay, now it's a little dark down here, but I think you can get the gist of it. What we're looking at here is my main electrical panel, and to the right of it is a transfer switch. Now, this transfer switch basically allows me to power 10 circuits that I have pre-selected ahead of time, so when there's a power outage, I know that I can power the sunroom, the basement, the oven, the bedrooms, the fridge, the furnace, the kitchen lights, the outlet here on the panel, and the master bathroom. But in retrospect, it would have been nice to power the entire panel. At the time that I got that transfer switch, I had a smaller generator that could really only power certain loads. It was not capable of powering the whole panel. I have obviously since gotten a much larger generator, and I think it would behoove me to be able to power everything. And we're going to get into this in just 1 second, why I'm recommending a whole panel interlock. But let's just take a look at the basic operation of the transfer switch, and then we're going to test it out to make sure that the generator is actually powering it. On a transfer switch, basically you have a section that says line, which is your street power. Off means it's off, and generator means that the device is now running on the generator as opposed to the street power. So as a test right now, I'm going to take basically the basement lights and we're going to switch from street power to off to the generator. Now I could do everything, but there are a lot of folks in the house right now and I don't want to turn off TVs and refrigerators and computers. But if there was a power outage right now, if we had no power at all, we would do exactly what we just did, set the generator up, turn it on, plug it into the house. We would come downstairs and we would take all of these switches and we would just go from line to off to generator. And we would do that for everything, and then all of these circuits would be powered by the generator. So as an example, let's take the basement circuit and go from line to off, and now it should go dark down here. And now we're going to just push it up to generator, and we've got light again. So that shows us right there that we're on generator power and everything is working as expected. Now I'm going to go ahead and put an image on the screen here of what a whole panel interlock kit is, but let me just give you a brief explanation and I think it'll make a lot of sense, and that is really what you should be getting if you're buying a generator of this size, or really any generator. Even if you had a smaller generator, I would still get the interlock. So basically on your electrical panel you have a main, and the power comes in from the street, it goes to the main, and it powers everything on the panel. An interlock kit basically adds 2 circuit breakers and it becomes a second main. So you can either power the panel from the street main or you can power it from the generator main, and basically it will electrify the whole panel. And the interlock kit is basically a physical piece of metal that will not allow the generator to be powering the panel if the street is. You only want one or the other. Reason being, if there is an outage and this breaker is still on, when you power it with your generator, you might send power back into the street, into the line, and electrocute a lineman. So all the interlock does is it does not allow you to turn the street power on when the generator is powered on. You can do one or the other. And in my opinion, that is absolutely the way to go. It is much better than transfer switch because you have the option to power your entire panel. And if your generator is not a large one and can't physically power all the items at the same time, you just turn some off and you power what you need to. Now, like I said, I'm going to throw an image up here on the screen and you can see what a basic interlock kit looks like. And if you are going out to buy this generator, or really any generator of this size or any size, it doesn't really matter, my recommendation is to get a whole panel interlock kit. Tell your electrician that's what you want to do, and it's up to you and the electrician if you get a 30 amp inlet, which is what we have outside here, or a 50 amp inlet. I will tell you, generally speaking, more generators have 30 amp plugs on them than 50 amp. But if you're going to get this Harbor Freight unit, which is a wonderful generator, it has a 50 amp plug, so you can certainly go with that, and you'll get more power to the panel. It's really not a bad idea. Let's go back outside and take another look at the generator and go over some other additional points, and then we'll wrap this video up. All right, let's go ahead and turn this generator off. And if you're running on propane or natural gas, the best way to turn it off is to just turn the tank off on a propane or on natural gas. Just simply turn the fuel natural gas line to off. If you're on gasoline, it's a totally different way to turn it off. My recommendation is you turn the selector switch to off or storage and let the fuel burn out that's in the line. And then there is a side access panel that you can open up very easily. There's a tiny little screw, and I went over all of this in the original unboxing video. So again, really important that you watch that video. You should open that little screw, drain the gasoline out of the carburetor, because then you will have no worries about fuel going bad and gunking up the carburetor. That's a really important step. A couple of other things to just be aware of. You should not, in my personal opinion, have this sitting out here in an absolute torrential rainstorm. What I do is I take like a large folding table and I just kind of place it over it, just to provide some shelter from direct rain hitting directly onto it and maybe going into some of the sensitive electronics, which they are supposed to be water resistant. But again, I think it's very good practice. Put a little folding table over this, make a tiny little shelter in case there really is a heavy rainstorm. The other thing you should be aware of is that you want to keep this a safe distance from your home. which is why it's important when you buy the generator cord, get about a 25-foot cord. Keep this away from the home. It does produce carbon monoxide. You don't want any of that to blow into windows or doors. God forbid, it can cause a real emergency. Running on propane, it is a lot cleaner than gasoline, and same with natural gas. But if you have to use gasoline, and no matter what the fuel is, just keep it a safe distance from the house. They sell covers for this. I intend on buying a cover. That way when I'm not using it and I'm keeping it in the garage, I know that it's all nice and protected. And any generator, whether it's a whole house unit on a pad or a portable one like this, you really should be taking it out at least once a month, once every 2 months, and start it up, let it run for 15-20 minutes. Just let it circulate the oil, make sure everything is working, put a load on it. I always use a space heater. I just test it out for 15 minutes, turn it off, put it back away. It's really good for the generator, and it ensures that it's always going to be working. Finally, one more benefit to using the whole house interlock or the transfer switch, either one, but interlock is preferred, is that you don't need 50 million extension cords running to all different devices around your house. You need one giant cable, like this 30 amp. The 50 amp is even a little bit thicker, and that's it. One cable powers everything. You have no issues, nothing to worry about. Now, when I say it powers your whole house, I want to just be really clear on a few things here. This is a 240 volt generator, so this can definitely power your well pump. This can power your fridge, your dishwasher, your electric dryer, your electric hot water heater, and most likely your central air, depending on what type of unit you have. If you have a 7 million ton unit on your roof, it's probably not going to power that. But for the average home, it's going to power everything. Now, you still have to stay within the wattage limits here. So if you have the electric dryer going and the central air and the electric hot water heater and you're using the electric toaster and an electric hair dryer and a hair iron, you might start coming close to that limit there. But the average person is not going to have every single high drawer electric device on at the same time when they're running on emergency power. So just be aware of that. But this unit, like I said, will most likely power everything in your whole home if you're using it as you normally would. Like I said, I would not turn every single device on just because you're on a generator. Now, I've done some testing here on my home, and I don't come anywhere close to that 11,500 watt surge or that 9,000 continuous rating. The fuel for my heat is oil. Stove is natural gas. So right away, that takes no electricity really. Don't have central air. We've got a few mini split units. This can power the mini split units, no problem. This can power the oil furnace. This can power a million refrigerators, lights, phone chargers, computers, the internet, security system, televisions, cable boxes, toaster, microwave, coffee maker. All of those items are no problem. We don't have a well pump here. We're on city water. But if we had a well pump, again, no problem. This is a 240 volt generator that could do that with no issues. Guys, I know this video is a little long, but I really wanted to make sure that you understood how this is absolutely a game changer to power your house as opposed to a pad mounted Generac type unit. It is significantly cheaper. You're going to save a ton of money. And the reality is, if you don't have outages very often, you don't need to spend $15,000 or $20,000. Take that money, use it on something else, invest it. This will serve you extremely well. Again, watch that initial video. It's going to go over a lot more detail that I think is really important if this generator is new to you. And ask any questions you have. I will do my best to answer every single question because I want you to make an informed decision. And if you could do me a favor, like and subscribe, because there's going to be more content and more testing coming out on this generator. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.